Morning. Please take your seats. We are about to start. Lovely morning this morning. I wonder if those of you who came from the rest of the Europe, you were expecting probably a harsh winter here. And obviously for some ecological reason it's not. It's quite warm and nice. Okay, this morning maybe was a little bit colder than usual. I'm feeling comfortable. It's a nice building, it's a nice hall. Please, you can use your mobile phones, you can use your computers. Just make sure to turn off the sound, including those vibration sounds. Okay, my name is Reizniece-Ozola, and I'm a digital champion for Latvia, an ambassador for the digital agenda, and I welcome you today to the eSkills conference. And eSkills for me is a very important part of my personal education, of my personal growth, my personal assessment. It's a fundament, it's a basement of what we are trying to build in the Europe, the future Europe, where people are skilled and they are inclusive in what we do in everyday lives, since we talk a lot about digital single market and the rest of the things, while some part of our population is still not ready. It's still not there. And we have to close the gap. The kids, we usually tend to think that they're absolutely skilled. They know what to do in the iPads and different tools, but they are not prepared for the labor market. They might upload the video. They might program, code some app, etc. But they've never seen a spreadsheet. They don't know how to make a presentation. They've never seen a software that will be required in their daily lives when they grow up. And the elder society, Europe, unfortunately, we are aging society. What that means is that we have to find ways to return people also to the labor market. We have to fight those unemployment rates for the youth, etc. And there will be hundreds and tens of topics for you today to cover, to involve, to share your ideas, to ask your questions, be active, etc. And for this, you may raise your hand and ask a question, and you will be handed a microphone so we all hear you. This event is broadcasted live, but you can use a Twitter. And here you have a Twitter sign, #eSkillsRiga. So please use that to share your ideas, to express some questions, and we will make sure they are answered and asked here. Okay, so I would like to start this conference with a welcome message, a digital welcome this time. A digital welcome by our Minister of Environmental Protection and Regional Development, Republic of Latvia, Mr. Kaspars Gerhards. Please, video.
Labdien, cienījamās dāmas, godātie kungi. Man ir patiesi prieks un gandarījums sveikt jūs šodienas konferencē, kas ir veltīta e-prasmju veidošanai mūsdienu Eiropā. Mūsu laikmets ir ļoti strauji. Tehnoloģijas un tehnika attīstās tik strauji kā vēl nekad iepriekš. Un mums ir šodien svarīgi nodrošināt ne tikai līdzsvaru starp mūsu e-prasmēm un zināšanām, bet pat panākt to, lai šīs mūsu prasmes attīstītos straujāk nekā tehnoloģija, kas neapšaubāmi ļautu Eiropai mums kļūt par vadošajiem spēlētājiem informāciju un komunikāciju tehnoloģiju jomā.
A rather short one. Yes, we may applaud, but it's a digital message. I like ministers being short, but this is not the case in this time, because I want to welcome Reizniece-Ozola, Minister of Economics. Please come up here on the stage and give a warm welcome message. Warm applause, please. The stage is here. Please, take your time.
Ladies and gentlemen, warm welcome to you. I'm not going to be so short
No, you should
today.
be. You should be.
So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our guests, it is really my great pleasure to welcome you today in Riga, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to this high-level conference on e-skills for jobs. Dear friends, I read last week that a great answer for when you see on your screen, press any key, is, but where is the any key? Now, this is a joke, but also partly a reality, because now, more than ever, Europe needs a strategic vision how to equip society with the appropriate 21st century competencies and skills to enable all people to work and to prosper. You might ask, what are these 21st century competencies? Well, I'm pretty confident that among critical thinking, creativity, communication skills, and leadership, the e-literacy and e-skills must be the integral parts of each person's competence. And the Latvian Presidency has three horizontal key objectives within its 6-month agenda in the EU Council. These priorities are targeted to increase the EU's competitiveness and entrepreneurial capacity, to get more value added from digital transformation, and last but not least, to enshrine the EU's global position. All these priorities are closely linked with this conference. I do believe that supply of appropriate skills have important role in terms of promoting EU's competitiveness, widen union's digital transformation, and strengthen its global position. A variety of market surveys indicate that e-skills are central to employment and inclusion. This applies to all competing economies, including also our ones, the EU ones. If to analyze from the national perspective, from Latvia's perspective, I am quite confident that we have good e-literacy and basic e-skills results, and it is not an obstacle, especially for a younger generation. As you also mentioned, all the kids know how to operate with the iPad, mine as well. However, I see challenges emerging in the other direction, because there is a constant increase in demand for ICT practitioners and professionals, and it is more and more problematic for all industries here in Latvia to find employees with a particular set of specific ICT skills. The shortage is growing noticeably. The demand for ICT practitioners in Latvia in 2020 will exceed supply by 21% already. Moreover, the growing gap between the demand and supply for such skills could brings to increase of innovation capacity. That's what we understand. The whole Europe faces the same challenges, as some of the European Commission services have estimated that increased ICT skills shortage may result in up to 1 million vacancies by 2020 in the EU. The question is about what we should do and in which direction we should focus our efforts to remedy the situation. The first three remedies that come to mind are a truly determined approach, inclusion of these dimensions in other policies, the horizontal approach that we are trying to do as well, and the transfer of skills and knowledge for economic gains. So first, policymakers and businesses should be more proactive and consistently promote the attractiveness of ICT education and jobs. Second, we need to improve our efforts in implementing already the existing strategies for basic e-skills and ICT skills by also including the ICT and e-skills dimension in the national policy strategies for vocational, higher education, lifelong learning, and the professional development. And third, it is paramount to apply dimensions, e-skills dimension for the growth of the EU businesses and our economy. There are still areas as e-commerce that could potentially benefit very much. because only about 6%, which is a minor share of SMEs in the EU, sell online across the borders. Of course, demand is just as important, and citizens should be able to understand the benefits of the internet and have the skills to access and use it. Did you know that only a small number of people are shopping online, but 80% of those who do are really satisfied that they have this opportunity? In this respect, I very much appreciate the Commission's initiative called Grand Coalition for Digital Jobs, a multi-stakeholder partnership to address the lack of these skills in Europe and to reduce the imbalances between the ICT skills demand and supply across all industry sectors. Thanks to our very active NGO partners, the Latvian Information and Communication Technology Association, the National Grand Coalition has already been launched in a form of memorandum of cooperation signed by various governmental institutions and NGOs, including the Ministry of Economic Affairs here in Latvia, and we are proud of that. By signing the memorandum, the government and all the stakeholders agreed to cooperate in 4 main areas. It's the ICT training for the labor market needs, it's the youth involvement in ICT, it's the modern and interactive learning process, as well as e-literacy of this society. Very basic things, but very important ones. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to summarize my speech with the words of the famous Latvian poet, philosopher and politician Reizniece, who has the round anniversary this year, who lived and worked at the turn of the 19th and 20th century. And he said, "Pastāvēs, kas pārmainīsies." It is quite difficult to translate it in English, but the meaning is as follows: the one who will change will be the ones that survive. And this idiom has an encoded message that we understand remains topical both 100 years ago and today. Reizniece is right. The success of every individual depends on its qualities: to adapt, learn, to acquire and apply new knowledge and skills. And it would be great if Reizniece idiom could become our society's motto today. In other words, learning is a precondition for personal growth, not only mentally, but also in terms of career development, a better paid job, and as a whole for higher social protection and personal prosperity. We have to understand that it's a very tricky thing not to be trapped into the technology. Technology is just a tool terminated by time, but it comes and goes, just for understanding: stone, hammer, horse, steam car, fax machines, now the computers. It all comes and goes, and it's very important that the skills to learn and to think create the core of the human being. Learn and think, and do not fall in this trap of a short-term trend. So, distinguished guests, I'm confident that this conference will bring valuable discussions and offer innovative solutions on how to promote these skills and ICT skills, and how to get the economic and social benefit from this knowledge. I invite you to be active and to engage in open and intense discussions. And now I thank you for your attention and wish you a successful and fruitful day. Once again, warm welcome.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you. Now, here's the point where I completely agree. I mean, we live in an age where technology and the infrastructure has been so fastly developing, and it's so succeeding that we lag behind the usage of this technology. And the European Commission, just a couple of weeks ago, released a DESI index, the digital index for every European country, member states. And of course, I was shocked in a positive way that Latvia is not one of the leading ones. And I thought, how is that possible? I mean, we have one of the highest internet speeds, and we have startups and everything. But it turned out that this index has a lot of components. And in some of the components, I totally agree that we have to work even more. And we have to raise the skills, because the skills are fundamental for use of this technology, for these tools, for these steam engines, etc. that I mentioned. And here, maybe let's see a vision or a pack together from the Commission point of view. And I would like to join us on the stage Michel Catinat, Head of Unit ICT for Key Enabling Technologies and Digital Economy, DG Growth from European Commission. Please, warm welcome, nice applause. Hello, Michel.
Hello.
The stage is yours, please.
So good morning to everybody, Minister, ladies and gentlemen. I'm of course very pleased to participate in Riga at the launching event of the eSkills for Jobs campaign for 2015. And I want to warmly congratulate the organizers and the numerous stakeholders for their commitment to support this campaign. The campaign last year was a great success. It covered 30 countries and over 350 stakeholders were actively involved. The number of people reached is impressive. More than 840,000 participants to events. Over 2.1 million users reached through various digital channels, and more than 115 million people exposed to the campaign through all the communication activities. So these are very big numbers, and it is very encouraging for us to see the great enthusiasm of stakeholders and their very positive response to our initiative. And be sure that we are fully committed to continue. The campaign eSkills for Jobs will indeed continue in 2016. Our ambition meets the political priority of Vice President Andrus Ansip, responsible for the digital single market in the Commission. What he wants to make sure that European citizens are equipped to fully benefit from the digital world. He wants also to strengthen the policy debate amongst all stakeholders on the needs of the labor market, addressing notably the future of learning in the digital age. It is all our ambition. To do so, we should build on best practices and initiatives such as the Great Coalition for Digital Jobs, and mobilize all relevant funding instruments and programs to that end. The Grant Coalition for Digital Jobs was launched by the European Commission in 2013. To date, there are 55 pledging organizations, and last year, 6 national coalitions have been announced in Greece, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Poland, and Romania. In addition, 8 regional and local coalitions have been launched. Several member states plan also to introduce coding and the basics of computer science in secondary education. There are even considerations about the merit to bring coding in primary education. Since the launch of the EU agenda on e-skills for the 21st century, 7 years ago, the level of visibility of this policy area has increased considerably. There is a broad consensus now that digital skills matter. It's obvious, but now it's fully recognized. The competitiveness of the European industry is indeed increasingly dependent on digital skills. All the more so that with a new wave of digital technologies such as mobility, social networking, cloud computing, and big data, the impact will be very high. Numerous studies are predicting that robots, automation, artificial intelligence, and key enabling technologies, here I mean nanotechnology, micro and nanoelectronics, advanced materials, industrial biotechnology, photonics, and advanced manufacturing systems, it's all the technologies of the future. So all this will radically transform the workplace and reshape the business models. They pave the way to an industrial renaissance. This is why we need to prepare the workforce to this challenge and boost the European talent pool to reduce highly skilled job vacancies. At the European eSkills Conference last December in Brussels, Empirica and IDC revised slightly their forecast downwards. They estimate that there were 262,000 ICT jobs vacancies in Europe at the end of 2014. By 2015, this number may reach up to about 340,000 vacancies and possibly over 800,000 by 2020. So it's a little bit less, but nevertheless, it's remained very high. Almost 60% of all ICT professionals in Europe are already working outside the ICT industry in sectors such as automotive, banking, textile, tourism, and so on. This is where the main opportunities for new jobs and careers are to be found. What is required is not only ICT technical skills, but also soft skills, such as foreign languages, communication, entrepreneurship, and business knowledge. But it also requires ICT-savvy business leaders able to smartly use digital technologies to develop their business strategy and adapt their business model. It is what we call e-leadership. As you may know, President Juncker said at the European Parliament when he was elected that by creating a connecting digital single market, we can generate up to 250 billion euros of additional growth. It's a very huge impact. It's something of the same order of magnitude as the impact of the single market in 1992 launched by the President Delors. And the eSkills initiative can significantly contribute to this target. The European Commission will step up its efforts and build on eSkills for the 21st Century Strategy and the Grand Coalition for Digital Jobs when designing the forthcoming digital market package, which will be endorsed by the Commission in May 2015, and ensure that the digital single market proposal includes a renewed and ambitious European digital skills strategy. We will further promote ICT professionalism in Europe and the European e-competence framework with the European Standardization Committee. We will also support member states in the creation or upscaling of national and local multi-stakeholder coalitions and partnerships to tackle specific digital skills gap and mismatches through concrete short and longer-term actions. It is a brief overview of our actions, and of course, much more can be done. To conclude, let me highlight our expectation. The expectation that the eSkills for Jobs campaign will be very successful and will provide us with a strong platform to mobilize all relevant stakeholders and new creative ideas to foster European growth and jobs in the digital age. Now I wish you a very successful event, and I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Michel. Great speech. Please join me here on the stage, and the rest of the speakers will join us later too, and we will have our chance for the round of questions. And I know I did mention, but there is a Twitter hashtag you have to use, or you are welcome to use to ask your questions, etc. And there are not too many tweets as I've seen. And I will do a small thing. I will make a picture of me and the audience, and I will tweet it so you are able to find, and maybe it will encourage you to use some tweets as well, right? Okay. Usually the moderator pulls up a selfie stick or something. Yeah, you've seen that, right? Okay. Thank you, Michel. And now I would like to welcome our next speaker, John Higgins. John Higgins, Director General of Digital Europe. I'm very pleased to welcome him here because I feel being a part of Digital Europe as well, not only as a digital champion, one of the 28 member states, but as a citizen and as a man who does all of these things on a daily basis and trains others as well. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Reizniece. Good
Warm
morning.
applause to John.
Oh, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I would call the title of my few short remarks to you New News. And I thought I'd start my new news by going back to 1841, and 1841 in Britain. And at the time in 1841, Sir Robert Peel had just become the Prime Minister. And he recognised that Britain was about to become an industrial nation. And he mused on that fact. And he said, one might prefer on moral and social grounds that Britain remained a country of cornfields and not cotton mills. But our lot is cast and we cannot recede. And I think the same is true, really, about Europe in the digital age. I think our lot is cast and we cannot recede. And also an interesting thing about that new news, in 1841, you might say, well, why did Britain, first of all, why was that the heart of the Industrial Revolution? Why did the Industrial Revolution flower in Britain and not, as it could have done, in the Netherlands or in France? Why was that in Britain? And when you look back in history, the thing that historians all agree on is that the skills of the British people at the time were in advance of the skills in the other nations. And whilst there are many other reasons, the single reason that historians seem to agree on is that it was to do with the skills of the people to be able to absorb the new technologies. And I think, wow, what a lesson for us right now. We're not making this stuff up. You know, we saw this nearly 200 years ago too. But to new news, to perhaps more recent new news, if I may. I want to talk about three things. I want to pick up on some of Michel's comments on progress in the member states. I want to talk a little bit about some findings from a recent report that I've had the privilege to lead on behalf of DG Grow. And I want to tell you a little bit about a member survey that we in Digital Europe have carried out. But before I do that, I do want to say a big thank you to the Latvian Presidency for hosting us in such a marvellous place. What a wonderful setting. And also to Mara, who you will hear from in a moment, from Lichter, who have already been mentioned. But I have to say, Mara, there is one forecasting error that you have made, and I'm really pleased with it. When I came to Riga in January, there was snow on the ground, there was freezing rain, there was ice, it was treacherous on the streets. And Mara said to me, oh, this is quite unusual in January, it's not usually like this. You can expect this when you come back in March, she said, it'll be like this then. And I'm so pleased you're wrong, and that we've got such fantastic weather. So thank you for getting that forecast wrong. I have to say, I think it's the only thing I've ever seen you get wrong, because everything else is just brilliantly organised, and well done to that. I also want to say thank you very much to our colleagues Michel, André in the European Commission, because I know that in times of change, and of course when you have a change in the administration, It's difficult, but increasingly important to keep the momentum behind these sorts of initiatives. We've built a big network of stakeholders and activists, really, more than stakeholders, activists here in our community. And it's great that you have shown the faith to keep this group of activists motoring forward. Because if you lose momentum and you have to rebuild, it takes an enormous amount of time. So thank you for showing that faith in Digital Europe and in this group of stakeholders, and for driving this forward during this time of change. Really important. And my final thanks is to all of the activists who are here. It's great, I know so many of you. You are a great activists bunch right across Europe and at some of these events beyond. Thank you very much to you. So to the three bits of new news, if you will then. I mean, Michel's already mentioned the activity at the national level, at the member state level, but I think this is really noteworthy and is worth just pausing and understanding what's happening here. So we started these activities at a European level many years ago, but we were very aware that to make a difference, things have to happen on the ground. It's sort of obvious, really, isn't it? But the fact that we now have 15 or so national coalitions, some brilliant examples here in the audience today, and another, I think it is 8 or 9 in train. Digital Europe, I think, has done its part by developing a toolkit, by keeping that network alive and encouraging it to get the best from sharing knowledge across that network. So, but it's really important that we see that. Werner Korte, who you will hear from later from Empirica, they did a piece of analysis that was presented at one of the conferences we were at, looking at the relative state of play in each of the member states. And I think it would be interesting to repeat that exercise and see, you know, who's come up the rankings. And I'm sure what we will see is, to use that English colloquialism, that all boats will have risen on a rising tide. I think everyone will have improved. But I think that's really important because at the member state level is, you know, it's where the rubber hits the road, it's where the action is, it's really important. I'm really very pleased to see that. Let me turn to the second bit of my new news, which is this report that we will be launching in a few days' time, looking at the digital transformation of Europe's industry and enterprises. So this is looking at the application of digital to the European stock of the economy, the existing businesses, the aerospace industry, the furniture manufacturing industry. And the reason that we've been looking at that over the last 12 months is because there was an American bank robber called Willie Sutton. And he was asked, Willie, why do you rob banks? And he said, well, that's because that's where the money is. And I think that when people say, well, why did you look at the digital transformation of existing industries, our answer would be the same. It's because that's where the money is. Because 75% of the value to Europe of digital is in the transformation of its existing businesses. And we have a series of recommendations in that report, and it was worked on by a very broad cross-section of stakeholders, from trade unions to people from government to industrialists, and I don't just mean tech industrialists, but people from the retail sector, from the furniture making sector, and so on. And one set of recommendations is about the need for skills, and skills in two particular areas, which not new news to you, but is nice to reinforce what we already know. One set of skills is in the area of leadership that combines change management, business knowledge, and digital skills, because if you're going to transform enterprises, you need to have skills in all of those areas. And of course, if you ask more businesses to transform, you're going to put yet more demand on the supply side to deliver yet more skills. So if our recommendations are successful, we will be putting more pressure on the skills supply ecosystem. And the other is on specialist skills, which we've heard about before. Another little example of that, I was moderating a panel of chief technical officers in the cloud computing area recently. And to be honest, I didn't understand half of what they were saying. They were talking deep techie stuff, you know, things like containers. I had to ask them, what's a container? But I said to them, come on, what's really going to be different in the next 12 or 24 months in the cloud area? What's the innovation that's going to have a real impact on the marketplace? And when pressed, they said, well, actually, it's the massive volume of data that's going to become available from all the different connected things. And it's going to be the skills that we don't have in sufficient supply to collect, to analyze, and to usefully use, to interpret that data. So this was a bunch of guys who, not normally in the skills space, chief technical officers, deep techies, but they understood that ability to manage the massive amounts of data that's coming from the Internet of Things and so on. That's going to be where we will have some real skills shortages. So it was good. We also mentioned that in our report. So this is another piece of evidence, if you will, if you need it, that the demand for these sorts of skills is going to be ever greater. And my final piece of new news, which is also in the nature of a sort of confirmation, we asked Digital Europe's members recently in a survey, and our members are the lictors of Europe, of course, none quite as good as that, but the lictors of every member state, and 50 or 60 global tech companies, European or American or wherever, but global tech companies. And we said to them, look, we have a vision of a Europe that's really a good place for tech companies to begin and grow and thrive, and also a great place for the use of tech to transform our economies and public services and improve the lives of our citizens. That's our vision. Now, if we gave you a set of things, a list of things that we need to deal with to achieve that vision, and we said things like harmonise the rules and regulations of the single market and so on. So we gave them a long list of things. And the top of the list was improve the quality of digital skills. Top of the list was improve the quality of digital. And I thought that, again, was a very good piece of reinforcement. So let me close with just a comment on this group here. I spoke at a conference in Brussels, I actually can't remember which one it was, on skills. It might have been the one you referred to already, Michel. And I put up an album cover from a rock band of the 70s called Canned Heat, and the title of it was Let's Work Together. And I'm really pleased to see that as a community, we are continuing and enriching our journey to work together to deal with this challenge that we have of improving the quality and quantity of digital skills in Europe. And with that, I'll close. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Please take a seat here. I'm waiting to see your report on industries. And, we as a digital champions also contribute to some skills, and we also teach people, and I've been involved in a learning programming skills for the younger generation. There is an event, Code Week, which is also held in the whole of the Europe, and there are hackathons, and there are different other initiatives. And on many occasions, these initiatives and these training courses, etc., they are done by not only by the government organizations or associations, etc., but they are also sometimes done by the companies who care about the future, the companies who understand that the lack of ICT professionals in the years to come will be a real challenging problem. And one of the companies is Microsoft. Please, Alexa Joyce, Director of Policy, Teaching and Learning, Worldwide Education from Microsoft. Please come up on the stage. Warm applause. And I should definitely mention it, Microsoft is also the sponsor, one of the sponsors of today's event. Thank you. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And can I say on behalf of Microsoft, firstly, obviously we're thrilled to be a key partner with all of you in the eSkills campaign, and even more thrilled to hear that the campaign will be going on into 2016. And perhaps we need to now think not just about eSkills for jobs, but actually eSkills for life, so that it continues on as an annual event in future years. As I'm from Microsoft, of course, I cannot resist using PowerPoint. So I want to, first of all, talk a little bit about why this issue of digital skills is so important for us. I mean, obviously, we've heard all kinds of figures around Europe about the level of job growth, and I'm not going to debate those because I think you all know the different numbers rather well. But at Microsoft specifically, we see that there's a real need in Europe for Microsoft skills and certifications. And we see a huge number of employers saying to us, we just can't find those people. And when we look at the different technologies which are required by job advertisements out just last year, we can see that the numbers who are looking for our specific certifications and skills are really immense. And so it's a huge challenge for us at Microsoft to see how can we work with stakeholders like yourselves to get those skills developed among students, among young people coming onto the job market, but also for people who may need to retrain and move into new careers who are in jobs that previously start to disappear. So it's something which is absolutely critical for us. And here in Europe, I think we very often talk about the difficulties, the challenges that we're facing. But we also have some incredible strengths here in Europe. And I just want to point particularly to this region that we're here in today, the Nordic and Baltic region, which when you look at World Economic Forum indicators and indicators like those developed by the Boston Consulting Group, actually, the Nordic and Baltic region is one of the most digital regions in the world, behind, of course, Silicon Valley, places like Singapore, but still it's an incredible innovation space and an area that we as Microsoft have invested in tremendously. We have huge numbers of employees around the whole region, whether it's Sweden, Finland, Latvia, with more than 6,000 people here and over 13,000 local companies partnering with us to develop technology. And so we think this area here in the Nordics and Baltics is a great example and a great approach that we need to spread out and build on as we go further into developing e-skills in Europe. And just to highlight some of the examples, I think the innovations which have taken place here in the Nordic and Baltics are really, really incredible and also exciting and fun. So, our latest investment here in the region is in Mojang, creators of Minecraft, a tool which I already loved before we even invested in it, and also a great educational tool. We're seeing students, teachers using that to develop, on one hand, coding skills, but also using it as a simulation environment to teach a wider set of science and technology, engineering and mathematics skills, which are essential to be able to marry those challenges that we're seeing in things like big data, where you need to understand both a sectoral area, but also have those deep technical and statistical skills to be able to make sense of the data that's coming out of those new kinds of tools. And we've also seen, other tools which I'm sure you're all using very regularly, like Skype coming out of Estonia, and of course Nokia, key companies, key innovations which have happened here in Europe, which we're building on and taking forward at a global level. And altogether in the region, we've invested more than $20 billion in companies who've innovated here in Europe. And I think what we see in those countries and why they've been successful is, of course, we've seen all of those digital economy, broadband speeds, all of those critical factors which are important to enable companies to be successful in the environment. But without building on strong education and strong skills from the very earliest ages, we wouldn't have the right kind of people in those countries able to develop and innovate and create those kind of exciting businesses. And at Microsoft, we invest across the whole education spectrum to help support that process in Europe. And just some examples that we've had here in Europe recently, we organized the Kodu Cup just last autumn. We had students from 8 countries in Europe, together with a number of partners here in the room today, from age 6, creating their own games and competing internationally to show off their produced game, as well as a marketing plan and a strategy for how they wanted to develop the game in the future. And frankly, when I saw some of these kids and the work that they did, age 12, age 14, aged 8, those students are going to be the ones who create the next types of digital companies and who make a big impact here in Europe. And we need to make sure that that's not just something which happens in a few innovative schools, but it's something that happens in every school. And indeed, when I look at the figures and the data put together by the European Commission or other organizations like the International Evaluation for Education, who've done a report on digital skills called iSkills, although the number one facilitator for developing digital skills in students is teacher confidence, that's what makes teachers adopt technology in the classroom, the number one obstacle is the availability of infrastructure. And we still see too many countries in Europe where teachers and students just don't have access to technology in schools. There aren't sufficient devices. There isn't sufficient internet connectivity. To give an example, I was looking at the figures just last week. In Romania, the ratio of students at grade 8 who have access to an internet-connected computer at school is 300 students to 1 computer, which is insane. We can't develop those digital skills unless we actually have that infrastructure, as well as that teacher training in place. So we're really supporting and working with governments in this process, but we need to be more ambitious here in Europe to make that a reality. We talk a lot about how we need it, but investment in education has still been decreasing, and countries like South Korea, like Singapore, who've made a success of a digital economy, did exactly the opposite. They invested more in education to make this happen, and we need to do that too. So something that we've brought just out in the last weeks at Microsoft, which helps countries and schools to also have this impact in terms of a deep computer science knowledge, because we're seeing more and more countries now evolving and testing approaches to bringing computer science into the curriculum. We wanted to team up with our experts in the Microsoft IT Academy who've been offering these very deep trainings for developers, and look at how can we bring that down to a level which teachers and students can use from age 11 onwards. And so we've given a very hands-on curriculum which brings together those 21st century skills that we talked about earlier today, like problem solving, like critical thinking, but also deep data analysis and computational thinking. So going beyond coding to really understand the logic of how the digital world works. And what we've done there is first start off with very simple tools, with using Touch Develop, so students can write their first lines of code and actually develop their own mobile apps. These develop off the back of more simple tools like the Kodu tool that we have to take students to a level where they could even, at early ages, have an app on a Windows App Store or an Apple App Store. And then as we move on to get them into the fundamentals of computing, digging into key programming languages like Python and Java, which open up employment possibilities. And then as they go on, they can continue to develop through Microsoft official academic course at high school, getting into core technologies and web development, and then moving into the college and career preparation so that then students who've been through this curriculum can move smoothly into studying digital topics at university level. And we see countries like the Netherlands adopting close partnership with us so that every secondary school in the country can offer digital curricula to their students, but also to teachers to enable them to use all these tools in the classroom. And we'd like to encourage more countries to go down a similar route. So I think what I'd like to say to conclude is we have fantastic examples and fantastic strengths here in Europe. The challenge is really now to move them from being these islands of innovation where we've got good things going on and make it something which is really mainstream so that every student who goes through school has the opportunity to learn the fundamentals of computational thinking, not just as an elective, but as a core part of education from the earliest age possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. Very nice presentation, great ideas. And I was wondering one day, I spoke to a couple of entrepreneurs from the rest of the Europe, and we were speaking about ICT sector professionals, hiring them, finding them, etc. And I found one thing in common, that it's a good and tough question, what exactly do we teach students and children at schools from the terms of ICT technologies, what kind of programming languages they are taught, what do they know, etc. I've seen so many CVs with the programming skills, citing programming languages which are obsolete, which are not in demand today. So how do we change these training programs? How do we adapt to the ICT age, to the really necessary skills of the ICT people? What kind of programming languages do we teach, etc.? And I'd like very much that you mentioned Python and Java, which are part of today's curriculum, etc. So, our next speaker, Piotr Pluta, please come up on the stage. Piotr Pluta, Senior Manager, Corporate Affairs, EMEAR, Cisco Systems. Please, warm welcome, a nice applause. And of course, I should mention that Cisco Systems is also one of our sponsors of this event. Thank you very much, and please, this stage is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. It was fantastic to hear from all of the speakers about how well do we understand where the challenges are and what solutions can help us to move forward to close the gap. I thought would be good to share with this audience a little bit outlook into the future. Because we have, in our research, we have developed this concept of Internet of Everything. And I thought it would be good to share with the audience what do we mean by that and what does it mean for European workforce and for European entrepreneurs. So firstly, if you look at where we are today with the Internet, this technology has changed a lot. We have about 39 of the world's population connected and can collaborate with each other using this technology. About 80% of the business processes are based on the Internet-related technologies. The amount of data which we are generating is immense. In recent years, it was bigger data generated than in the last 5,000. And we also have like 13 billion of devices connected and using Internet. And this huge area we look at as an interconnected parts of Internet of Everything. So the people collaborating, things benefiting from connectivity, the business processes embedding data, and then the big data which can help in analyzing and taking certain conclusions. Now, something which is interesting is that if you look at things, we believe that only 1% of things which can benefit from connectivity are connected today. So as we may think, well, we have achieved already a lot, we believe it is just the beginning of what Internet will bring. And just to give you some examples, today it's already quite normal that we see smart home solutions being deployed. It's already happening. Now we have more and more homes which can benefit from connectivity, automate, help us to control. It's the reality. Healthcare processes have a lot of embedded Internet-based technology with imaging, data, availability, mobility, and so on. The customer and consumer experience has been developed dramatically by mobile devices, video, and so on. Now, what we will see very soon in the future, due to nanotechnologies and smaller sensors and broad availability, we will see self-refilled bottles which will connect to the Internet and to the data and will help medicine, will help consumers. We will see the big changes in retail where a lot of automation will take place and the smart carts in the retail stores will not need from us anymore checking the products. This will be going out automatically. And we will see harvest alerts coming from the fields because there will be a lot of sensors there and a lot of data coming from everywhere. This future is also putting special requirements on skills. And this is linked also what our consumers, what we as the users are also expecting. With the much easier devices, much easier applications, so we don't have to learn as a consumers of digital, we are expecting the things to be simpler and simpler and more intuitive. If you look at this Internet of Everything, we have made some study. What impact will this have? And it looks like that till 2020, there will be 4.5 million worldwide jobs which will require a new skill sets or combination of skills. The value of this transformation for the businesses and for startups and enterprises is huge. And Europe is one of the best regions which is ready to actually benefit from it. And 50 billion collected devices. I mentioned we are at about 13. One of my technical colleagues told me that when the number will reach 30 billion, the current setup of cloud computing will not be able to handle this number of devices. Which means we will need to move to fog computing, which means that the peripheral devices will start to do computing. and nano applications will be developed, and completely new ways of the technology will be enabled, and startups and enterprises will be able to generate business from it. Most probably the verticals or the markets which will benefit from Internet of Everything is mainly manufacturing, retail, information services, finance and insurance, and healthcare. So we look at this in Europe. Europe is exactly the market which has a very high development of these parts of the business. And as this has been said earlier this morning, the digitalizing of the industry is exactly what will happen. And we have huge opportunities here. Now, if you look at the jobs, there will be probably jobs which we don't know how they look like today. This is the list of those which are already becoming very important, like cybersecurity analysts, more and more. One thing which we know is that Internet of Everything will not flourish without security. So it's not like that the security has to come next, it has to enable. Otherwise, these new technologies will be not trusted and reliable. Cloud architects, but also what I already hear, the nano applications developers. These are the kind of new skill sets which will be required. And if we looked at the global perspective on the gaps, definitely security is probably #1 driver. It looks like 1 million cybersecurity jobs will be needed within the next 5 years. But the overall ICT skills, we are looking at about 2 million unfilled jobs globally. So we have been talking about Europe, 1 million, globally 2. Yeah, so it shows how important it is for Europe. And data science, just to look at the history, the growth for the data science specialists have been like 40% yearly during last years. And this probably will accelerate. To share with you one example, not from the industry, but from the, let's say, public sector, we are doing a lot of research with the city of Barcelona, and the city has itself adopted a lot of technology. You see here the picture of the smart lighting. So when they've been changing the lights, the new lights are not only providing lighting, but they are also having lots of sensors, which are enabling to monitor parking spaces, the traffic, the people traffic as well, the quality of air. And this system enables savings for the city because they can automate a lot. Just to share with you a few numbers. The water system, after automation and putting a lot of sensors there, is saving for the city like $58 million yearly. The lighting itself, 37. The parking, about 50. But what was even more interesting for me is that deployment of these solutions have created about 50,000 jobs in the city. So we are sometimes, scared that this new technology will automate, will increase productivity. Yes, it will, but it will also create a demand for new skills and open new opportunities as well. I would close with this interesting number. 99% of the world is still not connected, and the opportunity is there. The opportunity for Europe, probably one of the best positioned to capture this. And I wanted to share also with you a short video which we have developed in Cisco, just to visualize a little bit what has been happening in the last 20 years and what are the next 20 years bringing to us. So if we could ask our colleagues.
Yes. I think they heard us, so video will commence in a couple of seconds. And if you wish to say something, then you can say.
I think it is coming.
Yes, it is. Thank you. A nice applause for Piotr. Please take a seat there. And you are also absolutely welcome to ask your questions using Twitter, etc. Imagine 50 billion connected devices, sensors, routers, whatever. Billions of things connected live, and us trying to cope with all of this information and then trying to find some new opportunities, etc. And we can't leave somebody behind. We can't leave anybody behind. And from this point of view, the associations do also a lot of the work. And I would like to welcome Mara Jakobsonen, Vice President of LICTA. You all know her, and thanks to her and the team contribution and everybody else, we are here today in this building enjoying this conference. Please.
Dear partners and colleagues, it's very ambitious to call Riga the capital of EU e-skills after the picture shown by Cisco. However, I believe it's completely true. Firstly, because we have here in this hall, in this building, the most committed and expertised e-skills ambassadors of the Europe. But not only that, I believe that Latvia has a lot of show as a flagship initiatives which we can share our experience in Europe. It has already been mentioned about the early coding and formal education process. We are very glad to tell that after long discussions between the ministry, industry and NGOs, from 1st September, our pilot schools introduced coding from the first grade for the children aged 7 or even younger. Also, when we talk about the leadership skills, and I just met my colleagues here from the leading universities, basically we do have top e-leadership programs for ICT leaders already for 5 or 10 years, and we are very happy about this. And the other things I think Latvia can share with the whole Europe, this is the industry initiatives which support teachers, students, NGOs to acquire ICT skills. If we talk about LICTA, my organization, then actually LICTA has been founded because we wanted to start ICT training and certification 18 years ago. And now we contribute to the whole spectrum of e-skills, starting from the basic skills, digital literacy for everyone, and going up to ICT professionalism and e-leadership skills. In 2005, we started our digital inclusion initiative, which was called Latvia to World. And we had one very single principle, to provide everyone with the skills that he needs. And it means that the needs are different for the senior or retired person, for the unemployed person, or the chief information officer. And that is the priority hasn't been changed for LICTA. We partner in different levels, we partner with different organizations to provide everyone with the skills needed. I'd like to touch a little bit the top of the pyramid, where are the e-leadership skills. And again, I think a good example, providing our ICT industry companies the needed soft and hard skills has been managed by LICTA together with Ministry of Economy and the State Development Agency since 2008. And more than 10,000 ICT professionals have acquired these business communication and language skills. And our flagship project for the moment is leadership skills for SMEs, because they form 95% of Latvia's economy. And as our minister already mentioned, in this sector, the ICT uptake and the e-skills level is particularly low. If we don't help them, then we lose in growth of our economy, we have problems in unemployment. And this is an interesting issue we are discussing with our partners from different countries. How can we link together these two things, ICT for young people, who should acquire ICT professional, and how can we link these young people with SMEs who need ICT workforce? And there are exhibition stands and some of the companies showing the projects that you can actually do it. But this is a challenge, and this is the way we are looking forward to. How do we manage those things in Latvia, where we have only 30,000 ICT professionals because we have only 2 million inhabitants? We do it mostly in partnership. And this is one skill which we have in Latvia. It's how to build good and stable partnerships between the state, academy, NGO and industry. And our minister mentioned already that we were actually the first country to launch the National e-skills partnership back in 2013. And I am very pleased that this partnership is not just on paper, it's in reality, because we have managed to build the major policy papers like Information Society Guidelines for 1420, the education guidelines which are implementing these principles, and now we are mapping the European funds according to these activities. But if we talk about partnerships, then LICT is going beyond the Latvian partnerships. We are very active in European. We have good cooperation with Digital Europe and European Schoolnet. We are member of CEPIS and ECADEL, and we are active member of Telecenter Europe. And now I will switch for 1 minute my hat, so I'm not anymore Vice President of LICT, but I represent Telecenter as a chair of Telecenter Europe board, and it's my honor to announce the Get Online Week 2015. This is the annual campaign run by Telecenter Europe, and this is a part of eSkills for Job activities. So I would say in 1 week's time, on 23rd of March, the first big round of activities within the campaign will start in 26 countries, and we expect about 50,000 Europeans to participate. And I'm glad to see here my colleagues from Ireland, Sweden, Malta, and many other countries who will implement this. And finally, if we talk about today, I think it was very good remark by Alexa, which I would like to continue. It was about the isolated islands. I think that besides the technologies, the training methodologies and skills, we should really use today to be innovative, interactive and cooperative, and maybe we make the bridges and maybe we join the islands into one big continent of e-skills. Thank you. And just to conclude, you know what is better than to have together the eSkills conference. It's even better to have your birthday on the day of eSkills conference. And it is probably symbolic that the man having his birthday today is the most committed ambassador of eSkills, and it is André Richet, Principal Administrator of European Commission.
André, you should come up on the stage.
You should come up to stage because you have a small present from LICT and also the Latvian Presidency. I trust it to Reizniece, the Latvian Presidency. So very much welcome. And this is chocolate, not the cake, but the chocolate.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to say maybe a couple of words since the grandfather?
It was totally unexpected, and it's of course a great pleasure. And I can tell you that I'm very proud and happy to gather you here and to support all your efforts to promote digital skills in Europe. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you take a seat here, as today's your birthday. We can pull you up, of course, but you can have a nice view of the audience. And well, I've looked at that Twitter, and there are a couple of good ideas, and people are sharing really the events that are going on the stage. I couldn't find any questions. I mean, are we explaining that so very well that people are not asking these? But I will personally ask you if anyone has a question right now. Do you want to raise a hand and ask for the microphone? Okay, these gentlemen and ladies, they need more coffee, and in the coffee break you will and you should have it, because we should share and we should ask. Now, but I have one question, a quick round for each one of you, just a couple of sentences, please, and you can use the microphones up on your table. And in Latvia, we take pride in doing the doable. And you know, the presidency is just 6 months, and there's a lot of work to be done, especially. So we have to determine very well what exactly should we do, what is doable, and what is beyond. So in your vision, in your mind, the top challenges for the growth of e-skills, for learning process, for teaching process, etc. I heard one thing Alexa mentioned, which is lack of computer in the schools in a couple of countries. And here I agree with Mara, I agree with Alexa, no islands. No one has to be left behind. But there are some other challenges and maybe some quick ideas on how to overcome these. Who wants to start? Doable things, quick challenges that we will face in a couple of forthcoming days. Alexa, maybe you can elaborate more on the computers at schools, etc. What else?
Sure. I was inspired by the quote from the UN that, Piotr, you had in your presentation that, you know, if access to the internet's a fundamental human right, why are we denying that fundamental human right in schools? And shouldn't that be something that we commit to politically? Because it's no longer cost that is a barrier. We can see that you can make cost savings with moving to digital methods. We spend enormous amounts of money having paper examination systems which are not secure. We've had incidents like in France where students have managed to get their hands on exam papers in advance. Yeah. And if we shift to digital methods for the school system, it will push every student to have that exposure to digital as part of their school life. And it will also mean that teachers see it as a fundamental part rather than as a nice to have, which is where it is right now. So I think shifting to having a digital paradigm, much like we have in working life, being fundamental to the way that we run our school system is absolutely critical.
Yeah, and what do you think, what is the age we should start teaching e-skills? Not for the life, one thing, but also from the programming part of it. Do you agree that first graders have to learn the basics of the programming, or it's in the distant future? Or we can do this, I mean, next year after next year?
I mean, personally, I first tried basic programming when I was 7. Yeah. It was the 80s when we all in the UK had ZX Spectrums. So I think, you know, there's certainly nothing wrong with starting early. I know that there is some concern about students using only digital tools from a young age. So I think it's really critical that early education still very much marries the digital and the physical world. It's important to develop those traditional skills too. Yeah. But certainly the basic concepts of algorithms, the basic concepts of mathematics, which are so fundamental to how you work in the digital world, can be taught from age 5. We see that happening now in the UK with the new curriculum over there, which lots of countries are looking to emulate. So I think, you know, let's start early.
Okay, thank you. A quick one from Piotr, please, also.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, there are no quick fixes. I don't think so, unless we convince Hollywood to change the movies and embed some role models into the big movies, which would show successful entrepreneurs with IT and so on. They don't show it, unfortunately, that much. But coming back to the reality, I think starting earlier, in education, the exposure for young Europeans to different elements of digital technologies. Yeah, starting, like Alexa said, from the algorithms and just the basics of the computer science. We experience this directly ourselves in our Networking Academy program, where we have about 300,000 young people enrolling into this program. In those countries and regions where they adopt this earlier in education, we have more commitment, and what is very important, we have higher participation of female students. When we start later, a lot of our society, meaning a lot of female, are already excluded from the digital direction in education.
The professional side of the ICT, yes. The professional skills.
This, of course, we would need to start with the better enablement for the teachers. Right. Yeah, because teachers will teach, right, this young generation, and I don't think that at the moment the average teacher is ready to start earlier. Okay. And this goes into the ministries and governments with certain policies.
And a very quick one for you as well. In your presentation, you mentioned 40% data science deficit increase. Now, this is the thing we can't teach in the schools. We can't make any hackathons or code weeks to teach data science. This is universities, whatever. How do you see it will evolve and what needs to be done, but rather quickly?
Well, as you said, this has to be prioritized more in the structure of education, especially on the higher education.
Okay.
But I think that also a lot of opportunities will come from the industry. I think it's important to follow for the public education to look very carefully at the offers from the industry, like from Microsoft, like from Cisco, like from others. Because these courses are already being developed because we need it for our business and for our customers and for our partners. That's why we do it, and we deliver this for free.
Okay, thank you. Mara, please.
Yeah, I would, of course, support the early coding and linked it also to mathematics. And basically, one of our yearly award winners are here in the expo. It's called in Latvian Gudrnieks, or the smart boy or girl, when it's a mobile application how to learn mathematics from the age of 3, and you are very welcome to see it. But what I would like to mention is the support to teachers. And you all know Tom Cruise movies Mission Impossible. So in Latvia we have Mission Possible, iespējamā misija. This is industry supported, scholarships for young persons who come into teaching. They might be industry based, they might be coming from other sectors. They go, they work 1 or 2 years in the sector, in the school sector. Then what is the idea behind it? That the teaching and the training process in the school is exciting. To show the young people the needed skills, but at the same time to do it in a fascinating way. That it is not boring, it is not just, spreadsheets or Word, whatever, but that they are really involved. And we had the projects together with Microsoft, my future job with IT, when we taught them how to do web banners, infographics, web pages, and that was really which they uptake and which they loved. Yeah? So this should be also implemented in the school curriculum, that you have the needed skills, but in an attractive way. I think that would help.
Okay, thank you. A quick one for John Higgins. Now, you mentioned in this report of industries. Now, I have a question. Does this report also focuses on the disruptive industries and the professions which will be gone in the next years? From this perspective, will it see the changing landscape of the industries from that perspective? And what do you see it will show maybe also the professions and the skills we need to teach? What's the changing landscape?
I was very keen that the report paid due attention to the fact that there would be disruption and change, and a lot of people would be disadvantaged.
Yes.
Again, going back, the history lesson, as it were, if you think back to the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain in the 19th century, there was, I can't remember his first name, Mr. Ludd, but we all know the expression Luddites, and that came from a movement led by a Mr. Ludd who wanted to go around and smash the looms, the new looms in the cotton mills, because introducing new technology was going to put people out of work. There were similar history stories, I think, from France the century before, when economists argued that the only true statistics in economy were agricultural production, and that manufacturing had no place in measuring economic value. And so I think what you see is that there are always waves of disruption and change. It would be foolish to ignore them. I mean, look at what happens if you ignore taxi drivers reacting to Uber or hotels reacting to Airbnb. You can't ignore them, but equally you've got to go with the wave of change, and you've got to try and take those people with you and solve their problems. So there will be disruption. You can't just ignore it, and we as a tech industry can't say, oh, the future's going to be brilliant, don't worry about it. You can't do that. We have to take the existing industries with us, and we have to, that's where the skills and the retraining and taking people with us on this journey is so important.
Okay, thank you. And Andre and Michel, maybe a couple of words from you as well, since you haven't spoken yet today, please.
What I would like just to say is that something is changing at the political level. And I think this is very important. Just the fact that the policymakers, they recognize the importance of this digital transformation of enterprises and industry. And that's really the starting point. If we are in a situation where they understand what are the challenges, which means that they will take on board this issue, which means that they will support much more any kind of initiatives in favor of speeding up the transformation, of increasing the skills, and also what is important for me is they are realizing that when they propose some directives, for instance, at the level of the EU, I mean, the directive has to be thought through in the digital age. So in other words, what we have to do is also to ensure that the law will fit with the new digital age and will not create new barriers. So of course it's a very high layer, but this layer is certainly a prerequisite. And what we observe with this initiative of the Vice President Ansip about digital single market, for me it's a clear signal, it's a priority for the Commission, it's the second priority for the President Juncker. So really digital and digitalization matters. It's absolutely.
Thank you, Michel. And Andre, final words from you, and you see this man in the corridor, you grab him, grab his hand and say, happy birthday. Yeah?
Thank you very much. I think the Latvian presidency of the EU is happening at a very important time. I mean, we are preparing a digital single market strategy. The issue is not so much talking about the digital single market. The issue is to make it happen. So to mobilize the instruments, to find the structure and the energy and the commitment, and this is where the Latvian presidency has a role to play, to make these things happen. Because digital single market is very much about idea, creativity, about software. And if we want to think about software, this is where the future is. So this is why we welcome very much all these efforts to promote coding, but coding in itself needs to be fit into a digital transformation of our economy. So it's a really mind-blogging effort that needs to be put in place so that we have not only a nice plan, a nice action ideas, but we need to have a clear roadmap and real and fast implementation to create the jobs that are needed for the new generation, and also to dramatically reduce this unacceptable level of unemployment in major countries of Europe, where we need to reach the opportunity to give jobs for every pupils, every student leaving school.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please, warm applause for the speakers. Thank you very much, guys. And okay, you now have a 20-minute coffee break. You see that I've punished you for about 10 minutes. That's because you didn't ask any questions, but you will still have your 20 minutes for the coffee. The halls, Jura and Kurzeme. Jura is right next to the atrium, and Kurzeme is escalator one level up. So please have a productive day, ask questions, and be active on Twitter as well. Thank you.